so, and the transformative effects. This is a 30 for 30 special, A City Ablaze, and I hope you enjoy it.
What if I told you one mistake could lead to a catastrophe? And what if I told you the controversy over the creation of this inferno could last throughout history? That one city, like a phoenix, could come back bigger and better than ever. This is 30 for 30, A City Ablaze. In one report in the small barn of Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary, on the fateful night of October 8, 1871, a fire started to spread from an oil lamp used to illuminate the barn. Without modern firefighting techniques, they were incapable of quelling the flames. The blaze quickly expanded from house to house, destroying everything in its path. Buildings made of wood and mortar, susceptible to the flames, were instantly engulfed. No one had ever seen anything like it, and there was an inability to stop the flames. The lack of fire codes in the city at this point led to unsafe buildings trapping people inside. The fire tore through Chicago, burning over 3.5 square miles and raging for over 24 consecutive hours. With only one bridge to escape the city out of, the normally civilized people of Chicago stampeded over and around each other in an attempt to escape the city. The city was largely abandoned during the blaze. With over $192,000 of property destroyed, over 100,000 people lost their homes overnight, and over 300 people lost their lives along with it.
We now go live to our reporter in the field, Mark Mancuso, whose work with weather as it involves with this particular tragedy has helped illuminate the situation and really give us a more clear understanding on how the climate and temperature conditions of that night related to this terrible tragedy.
I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso, and in weather history between Sunday, October 8th and Tuesday, October 10th, 1871, 4 square miles of the city of Chicago burned in the conflagration known as the Great Chicago Fire. This artist's depiction of the fire shows the view facing northeast across the Randolph Street Bridge. To date, the exact cause and origin of the fire remain unknown. However, the fire started in or around a small barn owned by Patrick and Catherine O'Leary. It was reported by the Chicago Republican that a cow kicked over a lantern but was later dispelled in 1893 as fabricated. Few factors contributed to the fire's rapidly spreading nature. Chicago's overuse of wood for construction, a drought affecting the area, and strong winds from the southwest which carried flying embers toward the heart of the city. When the fire began, the city did not react soon enough, as citizens were unconcerned when it began. Almost everything in the fire's path was devastated. After 2 days of burning, it began to rain and doused the remaining fire. Over 300 people died and over 100,000 were left homeless. On the Chicago flag, the second star commemorates the Great Fire. The rebuilding that began immediately afterwards spurred Chicago's development into one of the most populated and economically important cities in America. I'm Mark Mancuso.
It is not only our intention here in this 30 for 30 film to inform you of what happened during this fire and the terrible consequences that occurred because of it, but also to dive deeper into how this event actually occurred and investigate the events leading up to this terrible tragedy. The fire affected more than just Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary that fateful night. Many people throughout the entire street came when they saw the blaze and attempted to fight the flames. For example, this next testimony will be shown by one of the neighbors who bravely came forth to try to fight the flames with no success.
I'm a neighbor of Mr. O'Leary, and on that fateful night I was in the barn tending to my livestock, when all of a sudden I heard a large commotion from outside. I walked outside and saw Mr. O'Leary's barn in flames. Along with the neighbors, I ran over to try and quell the flames, but it was already too late.
The man that we're going to interview next was the owner of the barn where the fire reportedly started and was near the barn in his home when his wife was tending to the cow that kicked over the lamp that ultimately started the blaze.
Throughout the inquiry, fingers were pointed at me, and I was largely to blame for one of the worst tragedies in our time period. However, when questioned, I continued to point the blame at Daniel Sullivan. My next door neighbor, who I am not friends with, came over to steal supplies from my barn, and when he was unlawfully breaking into my barn, he knocked over the oil lamp that started this terrible inferno. He still needs to be brought to justice for his heinous crimes against me and the city of Chicago.
Our next interview will be with the supposed criminal in this whole investigation, who was reportedly seen running away from the barn on the night of the crime after reportedly breaking into the barn for farm supplies.
This man has already been questioned by the local fire department, but is still widely regarded as the man who started the fire.
Yes, it appears I was the first to see the fire. I was sitting on a neighbor's porch when I first saw the flames burn down Mr. O'Leary's barn. I hobbled over there as fast as I could to alert the family and make an attempt to save the livestock stuck in the burning barn. To think that some people believe that I am the culprit of this tragedy is a direct insult to my character. They say my story doesn't add up, but in the moment, I didn't really take time to notice the smaller details. The Chicago Fire Department already inquired me, and I passed their analysis, so I see no need for these people to continue to question me.
Now we catch up with the man that confessed to starting the fire after being caught leaving the barn. I admit, I am the man who started this terrible ordeal. The guilt is too much, and as a result, I will tell you what happened. During a card game, which was illegal, I became afraid of being caught for gambling illegally. I got up from the game and ran away, and in the process, I knocked over the oil lamp in Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary's barn. This oil lamp ignited the hay in the barn and started the worst fire in American history. I apologize to everyone for what I did and hope that God can forgive my actions. Man, this is some good illegal poker. Hey, you win? Bartender. Whose money am I taking next?
Hey, what you boys doing?
This tragedy absolutely destroyed Chicago in under 24 hours. However, one of the positives coming from this situation was the ability of Chicago to completely rebuild in an organized fashion from this catastrophe. It led to a system of grids to make a more organized city, and eventually led so far back that they won the ability to be the city showing the World's Fair, which was the peak of the return, if you will, from Chicago, from the ashes back to one of the premier cities in America.